Critical Role Recap, Season 2, Episode 49. So last week we ended up with the Mighty Nein having made their way into Felderwin, finding most of the city in ashes thanks to a crick attack, seemed to target possibly this apothecary, where Nott immediately ran to, and we learned that Nott's husband lived there and had been taken away. They also found in the basement there some dunamancy related materials, some sort of new spell school that has to deal with fate and time control in some way. And then Nott ran off to old lady Edith's house and spoke with her son Luke. So we picked up with them having just witnessed, the Mighty Nein witnessed this conversation between Nott and a halfling boy, which is apparently her son. And then there are these two elven mages that are of the leaders of the Cerberus Assembly that are making their way towards the place where they had just found the dunamancy materials, the wreckage of the apothecary. So the Mighty Nein decide to quickly go away from the area, and they make their way down to a little quiet spot by the river where they can talk. Nott reveals her backstory and reveals that her name is actually Beth and that she was a halfling. She met another halfling in the village of Felderwin, and they fell in love, and they had a baby about 5 years ago. And then roughly 3 years after the baby was born, they started having increased goblin activity. And basically, Nott and her family got caught up in this, and in their escape, Nott ended up getting captured, but threw acid onto the leader of the goblin horde. And then the goblins brought Nott, Beth at the time, as a halfling, to some sort of spellcaster, some sort of mage person, that then they drowned her in a river, and when she woke up, she was a goblin. And so that's the backstory of how she became a goblin, and that's why she hates her goblin form, because it's not actually herself. That's when then, soon after that, after being treated as a slave in the goblin society and then finally making her escape, she found Caleb. And we found out that Caleb's name is also not Caleb. His name is Bryn something or other. So Caleb's not Caleb and Nott's not Nott. And yeah, but they're still going by Nott and Caleb because reasons. And then once they've heard the full story of how Nott became Nott, they are basically like, okay, well, let's help you get your husband back. So they spent the day asking questions around the town and researching these cave-ins that were created by the Kryn, who came up through these tunnels that they dug. They found out that the tunnels apparently had been dug by some sort of giant worm, and that the Kryn just kind of leapt up after them and then went back through the tunnel, caved it in after themselves, and disappeared. They did find one of the tunnels excavation efforts had been underway from some of the soldiers before they left and just said, fuck this, and gave up. Caduceus used thaumaturgy in order to kind of do a sonar track beacon to see if he could hear any hollowness, and he did in fact hear a faint open chamber somewhere deeper in the rock, but he wasn't sure where. After he heard that, they went ahead and went back to the inn. They spent the night at the inn, and then the next day they arranged with some of the soldiers to escort Edith and Luke out of the town because they were pretty sure that the investigation into these dunamancy materials that the Mighty Nein had taken could likely lead back to Edith and Luke. And so they sent Edith and Luke on their way down to Bryce in Allfield for some protection, sent word notice to Bryce that to expect some people and to please help them out. So Edith and Luke should be on their way to Allfield. Meanwhile, the Mighty Nein returned to the cavern that the soldiers had already begun to dig out, and then Jester used polymorph to turn herself into a dire honey badger and basically just kind of clawed her way through the tunnel, and through 2 casts of it, so it took her about an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes, she did manage to break through into a chamber. In this chamber, it seems to be some sort of natural chamber with crystal stalactites hanging from the ceiling, and then there's a sudden drop off into what seems to be an underground river of sorts. So it is obvious to the Mighty Nein that that is how the Kryn made most of their journey, is through these underground chambers, but also on this river. And so the plan currently is for them to descend down to the river and maybe craft a boat, maybe with Jester's magical quill and ink that she has, where she can draw something and have it come into reality, and hop on the boat and try and catch up and find Nott's husband in some way. So this episode, Matt told them that they did level up during the night's stay, and so they've all hit level 8 at this point, and unlocked some new spell slots and feats and stuff that they'll be making decisions on over the coming week to figure out where they want to allocate their points. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Not a ton happened this episode, but there was a lot of backstory from Nott. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.